For my mega event, I chose the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics hosted in Russia. So kind of some of the things that went good for the Olympics that kind of made it a good idea to host them was that Russia wanted to make Sochi a world-class alpine resort and year-round resort. They kind of wanted to do an overall rebranding of the location and kind of make it somewhere that people would kind of seek out to go to for events other than the Olympics, just to kind of go on vacation. They wanted to develop brand new physical infrastructure as well as modernize and update any old infrastructure that they had in place and then promote it as a tourist destination. They also wanted to develop sport facilities so Russian sports teams could have places to host world class events like the Olympics, such as like they hosted the FIFA World Cup in 2018. They did bring in a lot of new infrastructure for this. They had 800 new construction projects throughout the city, as well as they had to entirely build up their sports infrastructure, as they were the first Olympics not to have anything in place before winning the bid for the Olympics. So some more, invested $50 billion into the area in order to make it that tourist destination and kind of modernize it as they had wanted. 21% of this was spent on direct Olympic related cost, which is about 10.6 billion is kind of what that was, and that was spent on things such as the venues, site preparation, and operating cost for the Olympics. They also wanted to increase tourism. It went up from 5.2 million the year of the Olympics of their annual tourism population to 6 million in 2015 after the Olympics. This was a large raise from when they just had 3.7 million in 2016. And then this chart on the right kind of shows their airport turnover leading up from 2005 to 2016. The last year is an estimation based on what happened from 2014 to 15. As you can see, they are increasing the amount of people that are going through Sochi. They also had revenues of 1.39 billion. Obviously, not up to that 50 billion mark, but when you invest that much, you don't really expect to meet those revenues from just one event, such as the Olympics. So overall, they kind of did meet those goals of rebranding Sochi as a new tourist destination. So on to some reasons of why they should have not decided to host it. So the original budget they had expected at the time of the Olympics, when they won the bid in 2007, was 12.3 billion. What they ended up spending was 4 times more than this estimated budget, and a large amount of the increase was due to the cost of the Olympic Village and Stadium, and even the budget estimates were thought to be on the high side, which just shows you how kind of out of hand the spending got on these things. Even with just the amount that they spent on the Olympic Village and Stadium and like just direct Olympic costs, they would have been the second most expensive Olympics ever, with that 10.6 billion that we had talked about earlier. They funded 16.3% of the total cost through loans, and then by mid 2014, the year of the Olympics, 70% of these were declared toxic and had already had canceled interest payments. This shifted a lot of the burden from the state to the taxpayer, as the cost of the value of the Russian ruble had gone down and the price of living in Russia had increased, making it harder for people to make ends meet that lived in the Sochi area and other areas in Russia. And the $50 billion price tag that the Olympics cost them kind of made it impossible for them to kind of live up to. Like, they're never going to meet that 50 billion mark in revenues anytime soon, and ski resort owners in the area don't expect to recoup any of their investments that they had made for the Olympics. This is due to excessive requirements for the Olympics, kind of things that they had to put things in that they won't need long term just for the games. Some more bad. They had to bring in laborers from other areas to help with the Olympics. Sochi is just a town of 400,000, so they don't have the manpower and numbers to kind of help construct all these things, which doesn't help when it comes to things like substitution. You kind of want that money to continue flowing through the Sochi area rather than bringing in somebody else and having that money spent on a different city. If you're going to invest 50 billion into one area, you kind of want that money to kind of stay there rather than paying somebody to come from the outside in. Another problem, the concentration of spending was thought to be a bad idea. If Russia would have decided to not host the Olympics and spent all of this money on a larger area, they would have had a higher marginal utility, um, and what kind of would have benefited their economy a lot better rather than putting all their eggs in one basket and going all in on making Sochi this world-class resort area. They also constructed way too many hotels for the area. Before, when they won the bid for the Olympics in 2007, they had 31,000 rooms, and then they constructed an additional 27,000 rooms, almost doubling that amount. Um, this led to a very high supply of rooms, and there wasn't enough demand post Olympics to fill all of these rooms, lowering prices and making these hotels hard to maintain and kind of keep up with their cost. The 58,000 that they have after the Olympics, what they have now of rooms, is equal to a place like Cancun, Mexico, which is thought to be kind of like a well established resort area. And in order to keep their occupancy rates from before the Olympics, they would have had to double the amount of people staying in the rooms, which is kind of just out of hand. You can't really expect to double the amount of people coming just by kind of upgrading your city. That has to be kind of more of a long-term effect. And then the ruble depreciated by half its value in the 12 months following the games compared to the US dollar, which obviously has a terrible effect on the economy. So the overall evaluation of the games, tourism is up. They kind of meet that goal. It is starting to become more of a destination that people would want to visit, which I guess if that's what they wanted, they went all in on that, which is good. But they do have a lot of long-term economical effects that will weigh a heavier burden than that tourism will be able to overcome. So I think they would have been better off having not hosted the games and kind of slowly building up Sochi as a tourism area rather than going all in this fast, having to put $50 billion in just 7 years to make it what it is today. Then here are links to the two articles that I used.